Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar entitled Exploring BGSU's PhD in Higher Education Administration. We're excited that you've decided to join us today. My name is Keith Ramsdell, and I am Director of Graduate Enrollment, and we have a couple guests with us today, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Keith. Hello to everyone, and welcome to our Higher Education Administration webinar. My name is Christina Lunsford. People call me Christy. I'm the Department Chair for Higher Education and Student Affairs and an Associate Professor. This year is my 21st year working in higher education and my 9th year here at BGSU. So I started as an administrator in multiple disciplines and then moved over to a faculty role about halfway through my career.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emily Creamer, and I am a second-year HIED doctoral student here at Bowling Green State University. And I am a full-time doctoral student. I spent 12 years in higher education administration between admissions and advising and counseling. And then back in 2018, I took a pause from my career to pursue my PhD full-time. And I'm excited that you took some time out of your day to join us for this webinar.
Great, thank you. So before we get started, I want to walk just through briefly the agenda that we have for you, and we would expect this to take probably 20 minutes or so, and then we're going to have lots of time for question and answer opportunities. So we're going to talk a little bit about BGSU, a bit of an overview of the campus and the university. We're going to then talk about program strengths in the higher ed program, the learning outcomes, curriculum, and so forth, the faculty, career development, admissions requirements, and some of you have already started that, but some of you have not started that yet. So we'll kind of talk you through that whole process. And then we're going to close by kind of talking about how do you pay for this? It's not a small investment, but we think that we can help you make it affordable. So just to give you some insights into Bowling Green State University, we are a public university founded in 1910, so we've been around for a while. We're located about 30 minutes south of Toledo, Ohio. And if you're not familiar with this area of the United States, that puts us about 60 minutes south of Detroit. And so a lot of our students, if they're coming in from outside of this region, they'll fly into Detroit Metro, and it's just under an hour drive to get to Detroit Metro. We're also about 4.5 hours from Chicago, and about 7 to 8 hours from some of the larger city centers on the East Coast. And so that just gives you a sense of kind of where we're located. We currently have about 19,000 total students on campus, and they come from all 50 states and about 70 different countries. And so we're very pleased and very proud of the diversity that our students experience on our campus. And so what makes the campus a little bit different? Before we start talking about the unique aspects of the program, we are one of the best college towns in America. We've been ranked on that list for about 8 to 10 years now, and BG is a great small town for the college experience, great place to study and to learn. We're also named as one of the safest colleges in America, and again, that ranking came out about 4 or 5 years ago, and we've continued to maintain our presence on that list. And then the list that just came out recently, we ranked #1 among public universities in the Midwest for student satisfaction, and that was determined by asking our currently enrolled students how many of them would choose to re-enroll at BG given the option. And we were, again, very proud of the fact that we were ranked #1 among public universities in the Midwest. And that came out, in fact, if you look at the second bullet point here, that was one of the things that came out. Actually, the first bullet point came out on that Wall Street Journal and Times Higher Ed study. That's where that ranking came out. And so, again, recognized as one of the best universities in the country for teaching quality. And then the second bullet point there, our graduate programs continue to be ranked as some of the best in the country by U.S. News and World Report's 2020 Best Grad School Rankings. And that is a report that came out recently, just within the last few weeks. And our higher ed department is regularly noted among some of those rankings. So very pleased with that. So BGSU's graduate college specifically is comprised of about 2,700 students, and they are enrolled in about 75 different subject areas and a grand total of about 175 graduate degree and certificate programs. So our graduate college has everything from graduate certificates, which we'll be talking about, master's degrees, doctoral degrees, specialist degrees, and a total of about 175 different programs. And the HIED program is actually kind of crosses several of those, which you'll hear about here in just a little bit. Some of our students are professional pathways students, and with professional pathways, those are students who are working full-time, perhaps taking a degree program part-time. We also offer e-campus programs, which are 100% offered online. We also offer traditional face-to-face on-campus programs, as well as graduate certificates. And the interesting thing is, I kind of kick it over to our guests here today, is that the HIED program really crosses this very nicely, because we're going to talk about graduate certificates. We're going to talk about, for full-time students interested in higher education, some of your students are enrolled as traditional full-time on-campus students. Some of them are part-time students enrolling in this program as a professional pathway. And then some of the courses, while it's not an e-campus program, some of the courses are also offered online. So Christy, I'm going to let you run with it and let you tell us a little bit more about the program.
Okay. So you have the bullet points on your slide, but I'll talk about a few highlights. We do have 5 full faculty members in our department, and one of the biggest sources of wealth in our department is our affiliate faculty members and our adjunct pool. We have people affiliated with different disciplines across campus, some of whom want to work with Ph.D. students particularly, so they become affiliates of our higher ed faculty. We also have adjunct faculty who are professionals across campus, particularly in residence life, leadership development, university assessment, and so on. So that really adds to the depth of our faculty. We, as Keith mentioned, we're part of this Professional Pathways program. We've had the reputation of really being built for full-time students, but we worked really hard to change some of what we were doing so we can better target part-time students as well, while we're maintaining the reputation and experiences for our full-time students. So we moved our courses to the evening. Many of them are offered between 6 and 8:50 p.m., but there's some other scatterings of offered at different times a little bit earlier. We have a good mix of full-time and part-time students. We find that our students have different levels of background and experiences, and that adds to the depth in the classroom. And we really call on people to draw on their professional experiences in the classroom as well. Our program is really designed to look at you all as students, looking at your personal values, how that influences your practice. You spend a lot of time looking at your personal framework and your own epistemology and how that guides your work and scholarship. And we take that very seriously and ask you to specify that, especially in your dissertation, but also weave it throughout some of the other courses in the curriculum. The last bullet really talks about a specific discipline specialty. We used to have a cognate option for our doctoral program, but we found that students found that a little bit restrictive because they're really interested in more of a breadth of courses. So we offer a lot of electives and allow people to take electives outside our program to work across disciplines that really build your core curriculum or all your curriculum options that you're really interested in.
And I'm going to jump in here,
Okay.
Christy, real quick, because before we move on to the next slide, continuing on the idea of strengths here, one of the things that you've pointed out on this slide already, just talking about some of those affiliated faculty members as well as your full-time faculty, because oftentimes in graduate studies, we emphasize the fact that our faculty are often not just scholars, they're also practitioners. Yes. And I want to have you talk on that just for a minute, because really in this type of program, that combination is so important. So can you just touch on that briefly?
Yeah, we have people who are, we have someone who's a vice president across the country. And what this allows us to do is to help us stay current in the field, have our faculty and options for faculty are currently practicing. Some of them do scholarship with our core faculty as well. But it's a good opportunity for us to provide experiences to improve people's professional networks. So the faculty teaches adjunct professors, but they also serve on dissertation committees. So specific to the doctoral program, that's really helpful for us as well. And then in the summers in particular, most of our summer courses are offered by adjunct faculty because they have a little more time. And Emily is going to talk about some of the requirements around diversity and equity and global understanding. And it allows us to use practitioners with those expertise to teach those courses.
Great, that's great, thank you.
There are a couple more things I wanted to add before I turn it over to Emily. We started a new minor in leadership, which allows us to work with undergraduate students and allows for more teaching opportunities for our students at the master's and doctoral level. And we're also looking at, we're exploring options for a new Ph.D. in learning analytics that's also in partnership with our Department of Educational Foundations, Leadership and Policy. And it's really working with large database systems. And that will probably come into effect if it goes as planned and if we're allowed to do it, the new people who come in the next couple of years would reap some of the benefits from that program. So that's something we're really excited about, as well as exploring options for an integrated academic advising and career development program or courses centered on those topics as well. So I'll turn it over to Emily. She's going to talk about our second slide of program strengths.
So when I think about our program strengths here in the HIED department, one of the things that I think about are alumni. So nationally and internationally, we have a large alumni base that can provide support for mentoring or career counseling. One of the things that I did when I came on campus is I connected with some alums that work on campus, based both on my professional interests, but then also individuals who were student parents, because right now, I'm a parent, I have children, and I was interested in networking and talking to other doctoral students who had been parents to receive some support from our alumni base, and that was very helpful. We also have a curriculum that includes classes in social justice, diversity, and inclusion, as well as this global understanding requirement. And this is a really unique aspect to our program because it allows you to take courses that specifically focus in on these elements. And you're not dictated to take one specific course in social justice, diversity, and inclusion. There's a huge array of courses that you can choose to take, both within our department and then outside of our department, so that you can focus in on issues that are interesting to you. And the global understanding requirement, this is something I'll talk a little bit more about later, but we actually have an opportunity where our students can study abroad and go abroad and participate in visiting different schools at international institutions. This past year, our students traveled to New Zealand, and this year our students are going to Europe. And Christy, you want to talk a little bit about the trip this year?
Yes, this year we're going to France, Germany, and Luxembourg. We'll end up at the Transatlantic Dialogue Conference that happens every 3 years. The other short-term study abroad programs we typically run are to South Africa and to the UK and Ireland, or UK and Scotland combination. And next year, not 2020, but 2021, we're planning to go back to South Africa. And especially related to our global understanding requirement, students can either take a course, an academic course to meet that requirement, or go on our short-term study abroad program. And others have also carved out their own assistantship over winter break or summer break to meet that requirement. So we have a lot of connections globally from Burkina Faso, Mexico, South Africa, China, that people can use that to meet that requirement as well.
Great, thank you. And another thing that is very appealing about our program is that we're a cohort-based program. So that means that when students come in, you're placed into our fall cohort, and you take your classes together with other individuals. So your cohort is your support system. You navigate through the HIED core classes together. I use my cohort mates for support with writing papers, with brainstorming, for stress relief, to get coffee. A few of us are going to a professional conference in Portland next week, and we're rooming together. So the cohorts very, very helpful, and the cohorts are small. So our cohorts can be anywhere from 5 to 12 people, depending on our admission class. And so it allows you to become really close, make friends, but then also make professional connections, because these are individuals that you're going to stay connected with through your entire professional career. And it was mentioned earlier with the professors related to practitioner scholar practice, but also our program values the practitioner scholar mindset for its students. So we are looking for people who have full-time work experience in higher education or related settings that are going to come into our program and add to it. So we want individuals who have that full-time work experience. I know when I was specifically looking at PhD programs, I had 12 years of experience, and I was interested in taking my practice to the next level and working on my PhD to become a scholar. So this was very important to me. And then we've talked a little bit about their national reputation, but that was also something that was important when I was looking for PhD programs. This program strength of knowing that I'm coming to Bowling Green State University, specifically this program and this department, because of its strong reputation and strong national presence.
So Emily, I just want to tag on here before we move on. When you talk about the cohort-based model, and I've worked now in graduate education for almost 15 years, and every place that I've worked has kind of focused on that cohort or had programs that use that cohort model. And I'll tell you, from my experience and from the students who I've talked to, it doesn't really, you can't get more support than what's available through this. I just want our listener audience here to understand that we can't overemphasize the significance of the cohort model, because that, for many people that I've talked to, that is what helped them to get through a program successfully, because they had someone to lean on, they had somebody to, in many cases, it's even things outside of the classroom. They do life together in such a way that they really become their own built-in support system. Do you agree with that?
I would totally agree with that. Actually, a year ago tomorrow, so what, 11/6, both my parents were put in the hospital. My mom had issues with an autoimmune issue, and my dad had a stroke related to the stress related to my mom's health condition. And I don't think I would have finished last semester or last fall if it were not for my cohort. They helped keep me accountable. They helped me keep me up to date what was going on in the classroom. We helped each other with support for the readings. There's no way that I would have finished that fall semester if it wasn't for that cohort, that friendship, but then also that push, that accountability to keep you going. And every cohort's different. I'm very prideful of my cohort. We're all really good friends. We all hold each other accountable, and I think that's been a major benefit for being in this program and being full-time and being able to rely on my classmates, my cohort mates.
And we, before we move on, so the part-time students will have a little bit of a different experience, but we still connect you with the cohort. And one of the special thing about our program is that we have a program or department convocation where we introduce formally our new groups of students. So we always say that that's kind of the term that locks in your cohort. But sometimes as part-time students, they kind of straddle cohorts, but they still find that core group of people to help support them throughout the program.
Great point.
I'm going to talk a little bit about our learning outcomes in this new diagram. And new, I guess, probably not so new anymore. This is my 9th year, and I think we did it about 7 years ago. And we really took a look at our doctoral program to look at what it is exactly that we wanted to do, and to see how it shows up in our curriculum. So there are 3 learning domains. We have the administration and leadership in higher education, post-secondary students learning and development, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the whole point of this line of inquiry is looking at how we synthesize and make sense across these 3 learning domains through our education and practice and experiential learning opportunities. We do that through networking across campus. We have courses where we take clients on to help with real-world practical experiences and learning assignments. And we look at that also through independent research, and most often, of course, at the dissertation, but there are some other opportunities to get involved in other research and assessment across campus. And the national and global context is really important, because we really want to make sure people do understand that we're not just looking at higher education in the US, but looking at the global context and global understanding and how that influences learning across the globe.
And here's a slide that shows a very broad overview of our curriculum. So our doctoral program is 64 postmaster's credit hours. And it's comprised of core academic courses. These are our core HIED courses in governance and administration, organizational leadership, post-secondary students. We also have a course in public inquiry, which is like an assessment related course. We have a series of research methodology courses, and we require that our students take 2 quantitative based courses. So right now I'm in my second quant course, and 1 qualitative research course. And then your 4th methodology course is your choice. So if you're leaning more towards a quantitative dissertation, your research methodology course could be in an advanced quant class. If you're leaning more towards a qualitative dissertation, then you could pick more of a qualitative course. For my research methodology, I'm considering a mixed methods course, and mixed methods is something that I took this past summer. Another one of the core academic courses is law, so higher education law, and that's the class that I'm currently in right now. This course is, well, just because I'm in it right now, it's all I'm thinking about. But the nice thing about this course is now that it's my second year, I'm really seeing this intersection of all the courses I took my first year. And we talked a little bit about the diversity, social justice, and equity courses. And with those classes, you need to take 2 of those. And for my 2 courses that I took women and gender in higher education, as well as equity and social justice in higher education. We talked a little bit about the global understanding requirement. So some students choose to take the study abroad trip. For me, I've studied abroad twice and then participated in something professionally through USEC, which is the Study Abroad Consortium. So I'm choosing to take a class on comparative higher education instead of taking the experience. And then you'll have a series of elective courses that you choose to take, and you can take up to 3 classes. And with those elective courses, it's really your choice. So I've taken an advanced quantitative course. I've taken another course that focuses in on gender. And my last course will be probably taken in the spring semester, which is another course that's going to focus in on gender. We have a pro seminar, which is a course that you take your first semester with us, and it's usually with your cohort or your assigned cohort. And it's to review the doctoral student experience and our expectations. The dissertation seminar is taken after your coursework to set you up for your dissertation. And then we have 16 hours of dissertation research.
And what we don't have up there, what I'm just thinking about, is that after your courses are done, we have a preliminary exam it's over all your curriculum, and then that's what you need to complete and pass with a written and oral component before you begin your dissertation. Is this me?
Yeah, sure.
So now we're talking a little bit about our graduate certificates. So these are really new. We just launched 3 new graduate certificates. One in administration and higher education, diversity and inclusion in higher education, and research and assessment in higher education. I think it's only been a year. We have our first completers this spring, so we're really excited about them. This allowed an opportunity for people to access some of our courses in a curriculum and structured way, and for people that just wanted, full-time professionals who wanted to advance their career to some degree. It also offers the opportunity for people to take courses to see if they wanted to roll that into either our master's or our PhD. And we've found that some people are taking advantage of that opportunity. The courses can double count across certificates, which I think people find valuable. So you can take some additional courses and leave with 2 certificates. But I think it's a good opportunity for those who want to further their formal education and higher education. So each certificate is 4 courses, so 12 credit hours, and again, they can double count across certificates. All the courses you would need can be completed in 1 year. And again, we're really intentional about offering them in the evening for people who work full time. And the other thing that we're really mindful of is making sure we have enough offerings in the summer so people can constantly work towards completing a degree or a certificate. And I mentioned evening and online courses. We're trying to move more courses for an online option. The assessment course was a recent course moving for online that we're really excited about. And some of them, especially in the summer, are hybrid courses, We typically offer the Equity and Justice in Education course and the Women and Gender in Higher Ed on alternate summers. And that's really a hybrid class where once a week you come in person and once a week it's done online.
So Christy, I think this would be a perfect opportunity. One of the things that I want to point out to those with us today is that if you look at your control panel over on the right side of your screen, you'll see a place that says handouts. And if you go to that area right now, you'll be able to download a fact sheet on both the HIED degree program as well as the certificates program. And then there's a third document in there, which is the PowerPoint deck that we're going through right now. So we would encourage you right now to take this opportunity, go there, download those handouts, those flyers, and that way you've got everything that we're talking about here today, and you'll have those digitally, and you can take those with you.
So now I'm going to talk a little bit about our faculty. Earlier we said we have 5 full-time faculty and there are 6 people listed here. And that's because of, those of you who don't know me, that's a picture of me on the right and Maureen Wilson on the left. Maureen is now an associate dean in our College of Education and Human Development, who's in charge of graduate education for the college. And I'm now our department chair. We still work pretty closely together. The fact that Maureen works with graduate education is also a bonus because she knows the ins and outs across the campus. But she still is a big part of our faculty and supports a lot of our doctoral students and has a heavy dissertation load. So I want to make sure she was still on our slides. So our faculty come from all over. I'm from Long Beach, California, and I have degrees at Michigan State, Creighton University, and Cal State Long Beach. We have other people from San Diego, California, Pennsylvania, people who lived in New York, from South Korea. So these are our faculty. Ken Borland used to be the provost of BGSU, who's now in our faculty. Ellen Broido, Connor McLaughlin, Hyuni Rowe, and then, as I mentioned, Maureen. We all joke because Connor is the most recent addition to our faculty and the only one in the history of our program without a Big Ten degree. So we like to give him a little mess for that. All of the information is available on our faculty website, so I encourage you to go there to learn more about our faculty, but they really give an extensive overview of what our faculty research, what we typically teach, and ins and outs, and all of them would invite you to email them with further questions.
Great. Well, now we want to transition just a little bit. Sometimes what we try to do is talk a little bit about resources that are available to our students on campus. And we would certainly encourage you to visit our website. As Christy just said, there's all kinds of links available. And one of those is going to be to the BGSU Career Center. You know, for a lot of our listeners today, you may already be in a career, you may be already in a position, and your goal is simply to advance your career where you are. But for many of our students who are coming in, maybe looking at a full-time opportunity, when they're done with this program, they're going to be looking at job opportunities. And so I always like to just say something about the fact that we offer a career center. They do great with working with prospective employers and bringing those employers to our campus, but they also provide some great resources and workshops for our students, including guidance in job search, interviewing assistance, resume, cover letter critiques, and things like that. And I always recommend, especially at the graduate level, to use this resource in tandem with your faculty and with the students enrolled in the program, because that's the network that you'll be a part of really for the rest of your career and rest of your life. So really to use those things in tandem is a great way to approach this this part of the program.
And I will add that our faculty are also very involved with your next steps. So I think that's really important that our faculty are very accessible and very invested in making sure you all get to where you want to be. That's right.
So I want to talk just briefly again about the admissions requirements. And by the way, if you're listening in and you have not yet applied, you're going to see the website there at the bottom of your screen, bgsu.edu/graduate. You can go there and it's very easy to apply. But we did want to talk a little bit about the admissions requirements. And so the graduate college requirements, again, the application is online, and the application itself shouldn't take you longer than probably about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. We do require a bachelor's degree from an accredited institution or its equivalent if you're international. We do require transcripts from all colleges and universities attended. However, one of the things that I want to point out is that unlike a lot of other schools that you may be considering, we don't require official transcripts from all colleges and universities attended. We just require transcripts. So that could be an unofficial copy. That could even be a degree audit, as long as it has all of your coursework listed, as well as your name and the name of the institutions you attended. And that's at the point of application. So we don't require official transcripts until you've been admitted to a program. And then at that point, we only require official transcripts from those schools where you actually earned degrees. And so that's a little bit different. We did that in order to make it a little bit easier, a little bit more convenient for our applicants. And so again, that's all spelled out on our website. You can follow that, but I did want to point that out. And then for our international applicants, if your primary language is not English, we would require a language test such as the IELTS, the PTE, or the TOEFL. Then when it comes to departmental requirements, and I'm not going to use this as a minimum, and Christy, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I know that students can be admitted with below a 3-point. We would certainly like to see applicants with a 3-point or higher. But I do like to point out the fact that at BGSU in the graduate college, we use a holistic approach to considering applicants for admission. And what that means is we're going to look at your GPA, we're going to look at your test scores, we're going to look at everything else that's listed there on the screen, your letters, your personal statement, your resume. And we do that because for many of our applicants, maybe you've been out of the classroom for a while, but you've got a great professional resume, or vice versa. Maybe you don't have the professional resume, but you've got a great academic background. So we want to use a holistic approach to reviewing your academic credentials.
And we always encourage you to ask us questions if you think you don't meet a minimum requirement, because we really want to work with you to figure out how to get you here if you're really interested. So we're actually changing some of our requirements around our GRE. Right now, it reads that if you have a 3.2 GPA or higher and 5 years of professional experience, we waive the GRE. We're now moving to waive it completely and have a writing sample instead. And this is for the next cycle, not this current cycle, but people will have to turn in a writing sample. So either submit a writing sample you already have, or write to prompts that we will give you as part of the application process. So we have a few people that are trying to waive the GRE this year. Some of them have some requirements met that would be under new criteria. So we're really working on a case-by-case basis. We have a set criteria that we're measuring against. If you have questions about the GRE, please contact Emily, and she's the first point of contact to figure out what the options are for that. We also require 3 letters of recommendation. We highly recommend one from a faculty member to talk about your academics experiences and your performance. And Keith mentioned that the application would take about 15 minutes, but that's for the grad college. You don't want to do your personal statement in 15 minutes. We have a set of prompts that we ask people to respond to. One of the biggest I think gaps in applications is that people don't actually respond to the prompts given, and that shows up as concerns for us. So we do take the response to the specific prompts very serious. So if you please make sure you do respond to the prompts given in the application. And then of course we also ask for a resume or CV. Make sure things are clearly denoted there, because your years of experience do count for different things. The GRE would be an example of that. So we really want to make sure we have an accurate understanding of people's experiences. And then Emily's going to talk about some of the processes and what happens once we receive your application.
So 2 years ago, I was in your shoes. I was in the process of submitting my application to this program. And before that, I had considered submitting an application for like 3-4 years. So please reach out to me with questions or concerns. Even if you're thinking a PhD in 2 years, please let me know. We can talk through when is the right time. So looking at our slide, there's a deadline, a priority deadline of December 1st. And this is more or less for individuals who want to be full-time, so or who are looking for those fully funded positions. We plan to review applications, that first set of completed applications, early December. So that priority deadline, December 1st, yes, your application will be reviewed in early December. And then we will communicate with you and hopefully invite you to our interview days, which are these invitations will be sent out maybe at the end of December, definitely in January. And for our interview day that weekend is February 13th through the 15th. So it's a Thursday evening, Friday all day, and then Saturday for like a morning and brunch, lunch kind of situation. So that's definitely a weekend to keep in mind, because those interviews specifically will be held on Friday the 14th, Valentine's Day. So for I-Days, I will be the one that will be communicating with you about your invitations, about interviews for assistantships if you're looking for a fully funded position, for your lodging, your travel, et cetera, et cetera. That'll be something you're working with me on. And then we will share with you the job descriptions of the assistantships, and you and I will work together to create an assistantship interview. And then after the fact, after the interviews, you will rank order the assistantships, and I will work with you to help you match the assistantships, or match you with an assistantship. If you are an individual who's considering coming here part-time and staying employed full-time, then obviously the assistantship interviews would not apply to you, and you would just be going through the admissions interview with our admissions committee, which is comprised of faculty and doctoral students. Oh, one other thing I want to say, Keith, our application, so even say you missed that December 1st deadline, you can still submit an application. So that is just our priority deadline. We do accept applications after December 1st, especially for those individuals who will continue working full-time and want to pursue our doctoral degree part-time or our graduate certificates. Those are accepted after December 1st. And once again, if you have questions, concerns, if this is stressing you out, please reach out to me and I can talk with you.
Great, thanks, Emily.
Yeah.
So before we kind of wrap things up and ask for your questions, I did want to talk just briefly about how do you pay for this? And so again, because we have such a variety of students who are in this program, both part-time and full-time, I wanted to provide as much information here as possible. So if you are in Ohio and you're looking at, what is graduate tuition and fees, and if you're a full-time student, this is what it would cost you, about $13,000. And again, this is based on 24 credit hours for the entire academic year. If you're a non-resident going, again, full-time, it would be about $21,000. But we also have very, very affordable cost of living in Northwest Ohio. And that's one of the things that, in my experience over the last 15 years or so, that prospective graduate students don't take into consideration. They only look at the cost of tuition. But realistically, your cost of living will have probably almost as big, if not a bigger impact on your bottom line than what you actually paid to the institution. So if you're comparing us to, say, some schools that are in larger city centers, or certainly on one of the coasts, either the East Coast or the West Coast for that matter, you'll see that your cost of living could easily be double or triple what it would be here in Northwest Ohio. So certainly something that we would encourage you to take into consideration. We also have some significant assistantships and scholarships that have already been mentioned. I'm going to ask Christy to talk about that in just a second. But one of the things I want to encourage all of you to do, because a lot of you may be looking at this option as a part-time student, and so whereas assistantships and scholarships may not come into play, we do want you to have a realistic understanding of what the cost might be for you. And so we would encourage you to go to the Graduate College homepage, which we've already shown you that, bgsu.edu/graduate. And there's a direct link to our tuition fees graduate calculator. And if you go there and just drop in the number of credit hours, and let's say you're only taking 2 courses or 6 credit hours in any given semester, it will show you exactly what your costs will be. And so we would encourage you to check that out. So Christy, can you tell us just a little bit more detail about our assistantships and scholarships?
For our doctoral program, the department pays for the academic scholarship. So that covers your tuition, but not your academic fees. So the academic fees would be the student's responsibility. And as far as if you have an assistantship on campus, you get a stipend of $15,000 for the year. So that's for your living expenses. We also have some options for professional development funds. Most assistantship sites also give professional development funds. We get an allocation from the grad college, and also our graduate student senate also has some money to help support students through their professional development. The university also has a couple scholarships focused on diversity. We have a Winifred O. Stone and Presidential Graduate Diversity Scholarship that is an additional $1,700 or $7,500 per year for doctoral students, and $5,000 for a master's degree or specialist. And then the Winifred O. Stone Graduate Student Development Fund, and this is for specific students for achievement and leadership. So there's another opportunity to apply for additional funding. So if you have questions about how to access money to complete your degree, please talk to us. We work really hard to get people here if it's a good fit for them and they're interested in our program. So we try to work our magic and trying to figure out how we can get you here if this is where you want to be. And then we also have the Stafford loan that's available through our Department of Financial Aid.
Yeah, and one of the things that I do want to point out is that if you graduated from an Ohio institution, an Ohio high school, you'll be asked that question on our application. I think it's called the Forever Buckeye program.
I think so.
And what we would encourage you to do then is to also check with our bursar's office, because at that point, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you're considered an in-state resident basically forever.
Yes.
So, check that out, because that could be a considerable savings. And then the last thing on this slide I do want to point out is the graduate Stafford loan that Christy just mentioned. One of the things that students sometimes don't understand is that the graduate Stafford loan is a guaranteed student loan. It's one of the only guaranteed student loans in existence. And what that means is, as long as you are not in default on an undergraduate student loan, that doesn't mean that you don't have debt in a Stafford loan. It means you are not in default on an undergraduate Stafford loan, then you will automatically be eligible for the grad Stafford loan. It does not take into consideration income. It does not take into consideration assets or anything like that. It only takes into consideration that you are enrolling in a graduate program, and it's guaranteed by the federal government. It has generally a low interest rate, and it can fill in some of those gaps. So if you're trying to cover, cost of living, or maybe maybe you don't get a full ride on tuition scholarships, but you still have some of that to pay, that's certainly an option that we would encourage you to look into. So just wanted to make you aware of that.
And another note on scholarships. So my first year, I received a scholarship that was above and beyond the funding I received for my assistantship. And then the second year, I actually received a really substantial scholarship from BGSU's College of Education and Human Development. Those are scholarships that I applied for additionally. So there is other funding that you can apply for above and beyond what your assistantship covers. You can also look to your professional organizations. So my quote home organization is NACADA, which is an academic advising association. And I've applied for funding through NACADA for professional development, as well as a book scholarship for graduate students. So those are other ways to fill in those gaps, because you're going to be a student and you have to buy books at some point or another. And there are books that you're going to want to buy for your own professional development. And these extra scholarships or this funding from professional organizations can really help fill in those gaps.
Perfect, great. So that kind of concludes the formal part of this presentation. Well, there's a couple of things we want to do as we wrap up here. One of the things is just as our way of saying thanks for spending some time with us today, at the bottom of your screen here, I want you to see that we're providing you with an application fee waiver, and that number is 289289. When you go into our online application system, it is going to ask you if you have an application fee waiver, and you can just drop that number in there, and that will automatically waive your graduate application fee, which is $45 for domestic students, $75 for international students. We also are going to leave this up here so that you can jot down Christy's email as well as Emily's email, and we would encourage you to contact them if you have any questions about the program after today's webinar. So I'm going to leave those up on our screen. We have about 10 minutes remaining in our time together. And so if there's anything that you need clarification on, anything that we did not cover up to this point, in the control panel to the right, you will see a questions area. And we would encourage you at this point to go on ahead and just jot your questions in at this point, and we're going to address those. And the other thing, as you're doing that, I also want to remind you just one last time, if you've not yet gone into the handouts area, go there now, download the fact sheets for both the HIED program as well as the certificates, the graduate certificate programs in higher education, as well as this PowerPoint deck. All three of those documents are there for you, and we would encourage you to check those out. So with that, we're going to take a look and see what some of the questions are maybe that you've brought to our attention. One of the questions here is, how do PhD students go abroad? And is it a conference? Is it research? Is it practical work experience? What are some of the options there?
So our formal short-term study abroad programs, that's an option where if all of our students take it for 3 credits, so your academic scholarship is covered, you would be responsible for the course fees and your flight. And so that's for 2-week programs. We used to have 3-week programs, but we have a new academic calendar with a winter session, so that's no longer fits into our calendar. So we visit higher education institutions there, and I'm starting something new in South Africa where we're trying to spend more time at fewer institutions to get some depth to the experience and engage in more intergroup dialogue. We have had students go abroad for assistantships. Some work at a specific site. For example, I used to work at the University of the Western Cape in South Africa, and I've had about 12 to 15 students do summer internships at the Center for Leadership and Social Responsibility. One of our PhD students stayed on to actually do his dissertation research there as well. So the opportunities abroad are research or practitioner based, or as far as our formally structured programs.
Great. This question has to do with like career options for students who complete their doctoral program in higher education. I know that kind of, the range of opportunities is very, very broad, but what are just some of the, maybe some of the jobs that, recent grads have gone into?
Yeah, we have graduates who end up everywhere. So some are university presidents, vice presidents, depending on how many years of experience before you come in will determine where you start when you come out. So we've had some people start off as assistant directors of centers, some as deans or directors of centers, and some as an associate vice president. So those are probably within the last 5 years. Those are some of the ranks. And we also have people who go into faculty roles as well. So like I said, people have opportunities to teach, some at the undergraduate level or TA for our master's courses with one of our faculty members. So we really have people who do go everywhere. We also had a couple of students work for research or think tanks or associations to do that work. We have one who's now the chief of staff of Akuho'ai. So it really is the broad gamut of all the options in higher education.
Great. Maybe a follow-up question to that is it a 4-year program or a 5-year program? Again, I know that it depends on whether or not the student's going through it full-time or part-time. Yeah. Maybe give kind of ranges on both of those options.
Yeah, we do have students who complete it in 4 years. There are full-time students. So it really depends on it's structured so you can finish your course curriculum in 2 years. And then you take your preliminary exams, and then you moved on. And you'll be working on your dissertation while you're doing that as well. But we do have people who finish in 4 years. And then we also have a slew in 5. We guarantee your assistantship for a certain amount of time. And if you want to get 4th-year funding, you have to have an approved dissertation proposal. So there are some caveats to, like, we don't indefinitely fund you in an assistantship. We want to make sure people are making progress towards your degree.
Perfect. For admission purposes, does an applicant need to have a master's degree in high ed, or what other fields would you consider?
We have people from all different fields.
Mhm.
So higher education is very eclectic by nature. Our foundation is an eclectic function. So the master's degree doesn't necessarily matter. In your personal statement, you'll be asked why higher education, why our program. So as long as you can talk about and describe how our program fits with your career goals and how your past may have led you there, that's fine. So I think that adds again to the richness of who's in the classroom and our graduates and our experiences of everyone in our HISA community, really. So you do not have to have a master's in a specific discipline.
Great. The next question has to do with faculty support throughout the coursework and the dissertation phase, everything from in the advisor capacity as a dissertation chair. So, and again, I know that this is probably a whole nother webinar in itself,
Yeah.
but what are some of the roles that faculty play to support students in the program?
Our faculty are very involved and again, very accessible. I've seen doctoral programs where some people are assigned advisors outside the faculty and don't get to access their faculty to their second or third year. I've seen programs where the faculty really aren't involved in the day-to-day and really aren't accessible. And our program, I think we pride ourselves on being accessible to our students, and the relationship and the nature of the relationships will depend on what the students actually need. Part of the need will help us pair you with the right person. Some people look at a faculty member because of their expertise or their expertise in content area or methodology. Some are by how they function and get people through a program. So we have a range of faculty with a lot of different experiences and again, expertise, but we work closely with our doctoral students. And again, our affiliate faculty and adjunct faculty help us round out that pool. So we part of our pro seminar, the students have to interview faculty, so we make sure you get to know them. The department chair and I'd be that person in that role is technically the advisor at the beginning as people integrate in, and then people kind of select the chair for their committee.
Okay. The next question has to do kind of going back to the admissions process, and one of them is, we kind of gave a range on the typical cohort number, but I don't think that was really a limitation. I mean, in an ideal world, your cohort might be 10 to 12, but that's not a max, right?
It's not a max. We want strong candidates. So I think I've been here where we've had cohorts of 5 people and cohorts of 13. So we really just want to make sure that people are ready for the program and that we have the capacity to support them. So that's why we have a range. This assistantships, and I should have said this before, but we work hard to get as many assistantships as we can fill. We've had a person that was really interested in a specific area in which we didn't have an assistantship, and I went to that unit and they were able to find money to create one. So if you have questions again or special interests that you're really looking for, talk to us, and we tried to, based off of people's interests, we try to make sure we have assistantships that might match that. We can't do it all the time, but we work really hard to do that.
No. After the interviews are completed, about how long does it take before applicants are notified of the decision?
Usually around, so the first round of applications probably about 10 days before you get the invitation to the interview days. The interview days, it's a really quick turnaround time, so about 10 days again. And if something happens or people really need to know, that we can look at it in an expedited way, and again, as best as we can. And then there's an April 15th deadline that's across the country. Different grad programs have agreed to give students until April 15th. We ask that if people know to tell us earlier, so their spot might open up for someone else. But it's usually about a week to 10 days. We try to get them done because we know people are interested in knowing.
I know I was pleasantly surprised at how quickly the turnaround. I think it was 5 or 6 days at the most when I found after my my interview in February, when I found out that I was accepted to the program, and I closed my office door and jumped up and down. I was pretty excited.
I know that this question is going to vary as well. Talking about the GRE requirement, for an applicant who needs to take the GRE, we don't use minimum scores, but what would you say is maybe a solid average score? Like you'd like to see a student with over a certain score. I know many of our programs tends to be in that 300 combined range, but it sounds to me like you're so much is moving away from that as an admissions criteria.
Yeah, I think that's a good marker. And again, we look at the holistic review. So if something happens where, your GPA is not what you want it to be, or your GRE is not what you want it to be, you might want to address that briefly in your personal statement to explain some of the why. But I think it is better to address those on a case-by-case basis. And please don't be embarrassed to contact us if you didn't get the GRE scores you want. But I think if you let us know, we can kind of see with a realistic picture what we're working with and get you probably a more helpful answer.
Great. The next question, are there many students who enter the program without 5 years of professional experience?
We do have, and so we have, I think it says 3 to 5 years preferred. There are people with different ranges of experience, some people who are switching fields completely. So again, we look at the whole package, and again, how people can explain how our program fits into their career plans, and then figure out how do we make sure they're ready to do the work, because you're expected to bring some level of expertise and experience into the classroom, and it really helps people to draw upon for their academic coursework. So again, probably an individual basis, but if you don't meet the 3 to 5 years of experience, again, please contact us so we can look at your entire application package to see if it's a good fit and to see what you look like in different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this next question has to do with kind of the historic acceptance rate into the program. I know that this is also a difficult question to answer because every applicant pool looks entirely different.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about holistic admissions, what you're talking about is you're looking at individual applicants as opposed to looking at the whole pool and making a decision based on that. So
yeah, that's correct. So we actually don't have, we haven't kept those numbers in a formal capacity with acceptance rates. We look at offers to yield. And again, part of that, I think, because of where we're located, and also because historically our program has been really difficult for people who are doing it part-time, and we've shifted that. We've had enough capacity to support people. So we don't take everyone for sure, but if people are qualified and have the credentials, and this is a program that we can meet their interest in, and they have the academic background that we're looking for, we can find a way to help make it work in different regards. So it's not something where we keep the formal acceptance and rejection rates.
Great. Well, with that, we're almost out of time here. We just have about 60 seconds left. And what I want to do is to kind of bring us to a close. I just want to remind everybody to download those documents here in this final minute. Make sure that you have the contact information here for Dr. Lunsford and Emily. And I also just want to mention one more time, be sure that you use this application fee waiver. And this application fee waiver will work for any of the next 3 terms. So if you're applying for fall of 2020, this is the appropriate time to be using that application fee waiver. And that fee waiver will work through December 31st. So if you are thinking about applying for the next academic year, this is the time to apply. We would encourage you to get in there and use that application fee waiver here within the next couple months. So with that, we just want to thank you once again for the time that you spent with us. On behalf of Dr. Lunsford, Emily, and myself, Keith Ramsdell, thank you for your interest and your time. We look forward to hearing from you, and we hope to be able to see you here on campus in the near future. Have a great afternoon.